Following some research, I felt the need to share some information and opinion on the subject matter. What are GM foods? Genetically modified foods are foods derived from organisms whose genetic material, DNA, has been modified in a way that does not occur naturally, for example, through the introduction of a gene from a different organism. The Foods Standards Agency UK states that genetically modified foods can be defined as organisms, that is, plants or animals, in which the genetic material, DNA, has been altered in a way that does not occur naturally by mating and/or natural recombination. GM stands for genetic modification, or genetically modified. It's the process of altering the genes of a living thing. Genes carry the instructions for all the characteristics that a living thing inherits. Genetic modification allows us to produce plants, animals, and microorganisms with specific qualities. You may have noticed plant-based meat alternatives available in your supermarkets, and there are growing discussions that rich nations should shift entirely to synthetic beef. What is synthetic beef? Synthetic beef is lab-grown meat. Other lab-grown meat are known as cultured meat and in vitro meat. They are made by growing muscle cells in a nutrient serum and encouraging them into muscle-like fibers. Similarly, yeast that has been genetically altered to manufacture proteins found in milk or eggs can produce artificial milk or hen-free egg whites. So the race is on to make affordable cultured meat products, as certain organizations believe that an alternative is required, as livestock farming uses large amounts of land and water to produce crops. I personally welcome traditional farming, as it not only provides you with natural organic nutrition, but also provides employment that communities benefit from. So where is all this leading? In order to understand our present, we must look at the past. John Francis Queeny, a chemical entrepreneur, formed a company in 1901, St. Louis, Missouri, called Monsanto, which he named after his wife, Olga Mendez Monsanto, who was a Spanish Sephardic Jew who had fled the Spanish Inquisition and went to Holland. The Monsanto family eventually emigrated to America. They became merchants, shippers, fur buyers, and bankers in New Orleans and practiced Judaism openly. Whilst John Queeny was working for Mayer Brothers Drug Company, Monsanto Chemical Works began producing saccharin. Saccharin is an artificial sweetener with effectively no food energy. It is about 300 to 400 times as sweet as sucrose, but has a bitter or metallic aftertaste, especially at high concentrations. Saccharin is used to sweeten products such as drinks, candies, cookies, and medicines. John Queeny later sold saccharin to Mayer Brothers. He began to make a profit in 1905 and decided to leave Mayer Brothers in 1906 to work full-time for Monsanto. The company became one of the largest producers of engineered crops in the US by the 1970s, and in 2018, Monsanto was bought by Bayer for $66 billion. Bayer AG is a German multinational pharmaceutical and life sciences company and one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world. So why have I brought this to your attention? Well, It appears that our foods have been genetically engineered for quite some time and appears to be a billion-dollar industry. But what are the effects of GM foods within our body? And have they been recorded? Some studies suggest that the effects of consuming artificial sweeteners like saccharin increases hunger, food intake, and weight gain. An observational study on 78,694 women found that those consuming artificial sweeteners gained about 2 pounds of weight more than those who didn't. The main concerns about adverse effects of GM foods on health are the transfer of antibiotic resistance, allergenicity and toxicity, organ damage or gene transfer. There have been over 100 research studies comparing the effects of traditional food to genetically modified food, of which results have been reviewed in various journals. How these affect regulations can be accessed through the Center for Environmental Risk Assessment. What I have noticed following my research is that when a study is done to look at the effects of GM foods, there is another study provided that seems to disprove the previous negative effects caused by GM foods. So there does not appear to be absolute answers as to whether GM foods have long-term effects on the consumer or not. Furthermore, most current toxicity studies are based on testing individual chemicals rather than chemical mixtures or whole foods, because testing of the diverse mixtures of chemicals experienced by humans is extremely challenging. There are also trust issues as what to believe in relation to this subject. The American Medical Association and the World Health Organization concluded that from the research of independent groups worldwide that GM foods are safe for consumers. Regarding toxicity, this includes any dangers related to organ health, mutations, pregnancy and offspring, and potential for transfer of genes to the consumer. After the introduction of GM foods in the US decades ago, people independently reported toxic effects. The Institute for Responsible Technology reported that when rats were fed a diet containing GMO potato, almost every organ system experienced adverse effects after 10 days. The IRT stated that the toxicity was the result of GM techniques. They claimed the process of making the GMO caused it to be toxic. Therefore, all GMOs were high risk for toxicity. Following this, scientists all over the world sought to uncover any possible toxicity caused by GMOs, and further studies found no evidence that GMOs cause organ toxicity or any other adverse health effects. So, as you can see from the above, the evidence for or against GMOs are proving rather difficult to ascertain. Which leads me to wonder, does profit have anything to do with our health concerns as to determining whether GM foods are good for us or not? There seems to be immense profit gained from GM foods, reducing the need for traditional farming. Are GM foods being supported by profit margins as they appear to be a billion-dollar industry? What does the Bible say about genetic modification? Leviticus Chapter 19 verse 19 states, "Ye shall keep my statutes. Thou shalt not let thy cattle gender with a diverse kind. Thou shalt not sow thy field with mingled seed, neither shall a garment mingled of linen and woollen come upon thee." Genesis chapter 1 verse 11. And God said, "Let the earth bring forth grass, the herb yielding seed, and the fruit tree yielding fruit after his kind, whose seed is in itself upon the earth, And it was so. Matthew chapter 15, verse 13. But he answered and said, Every plant which my heavenly Father hath not planted shall be rooted up. Deuteronomy chapter 22, verse 9. Thou shalt not sow thy vineyard with diverse seeds, lest the fruit of thy seed which thou hast sown and the fruit of thy vineyard be defiled. Sorcery in the New Testament is translated from the Greek word Pharmakeia, which means medication, pharmacy, that is, by extension, magic, literal or figurative, sorcery, witchcraft. Acts chapter 8, verse 9 to 11. But there was a certain man, called Simon, which before time in the same city used sorcery, and bewitched the people of Samaria, given out that himself was some great one, to whom they all gave heed, from the least to the greatest, saying, This man is the great power of God. And to him they had regard, because that of long time he had bewitched them with sorceries. Revelation chapter 18, verse 23. And the light of a candle shall shine no more at all in thee, and the voice of the bridegroom and of the bride shall be heard no more at all in thee. For thy merchants were the great men of the earth, for by thy sorceries were all nations deceived. I have listed references in the description area should you wish to do further research and study on this subject. God bless.